Tony Alford takes something of a shot at Ohio State. Someone at CBS finally got it right. And who are those unheralded players that should do a little bit more than people expect this year? We're going to talk about all of that on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, although I wasn't on the ground today. So your man at home. Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Thank you to all of our everydayers, to those who check out the show every single day, and thank you for making us your first listen. I basically laid out exactly what we're going to talk about in the three parts at the very top. Tony Alford has some interesting things that he said about what Michigan is to him and how that compares to the former place, as he called it. I think that was the word. Those were the words. We're going to read and react to that. Then we're going to get into Tom Fornelli had actually a better take on Michigan than we've seen from Shehan Jeyarajah. And then finally, who are some of those players that I think can take a step forward, be those guys that by the end of the year, even the common layman knows who they are. So we will get to those here momentarily, but let's start with the Tony Alford stuff. Talking about Michigan, he says, this place, this Block M is amazing and it's different. It's one thing to say it's different. And everyone's going to say every school you go to, the coaches say we're different. We're different. I think to a young man and their family need to come here to really experience it. This place is different. I think the people are different. I think our staff is different. Our head coach, damn sure, is different. I think when young people sit there, especially with him, when they sit in a room with him, they walk out like, yeah, that guy's a real one. There's not the overbearing. There's not the pretentiousness and the cliques. This place is just different. I want to note that this is about recruiting, right? Like how you can sell the recruiting for Michigan, but the shot comes. Trust me, it comes. Our players, I think when you sit with our players, some of the kids that I've had have come in recently in recruiting, they speak volumes about our players, and those are the best recruiters we have. It's not the coaches, it's the players. And so we sit down with them, and we have an amazing, amazing locker room to sell, if you will, or present rather. I think this community is how they've embraced this team, and this culture has been unlike anywhere else I've been. There's one thing. And so this is it's a different place. It's a different place. I hope that answers your question. You wanted me to say something really bad about the other place. I'll say it. Yeah, we're better. There you go. All right, now I'm going to get crucified on that. It's all right. I shouldn't do all that, should I? Yeah. I can tell you this about Tony Alford. He's in a much better spot, he feels. I mean, you can hear it there. Spoken to some people about that transition for him. And I know, like, the Ohio State fans will be like, we didn't want him, right? Like, you didn't get whoever, he did get Travion Henderson without even going on campus. Obviously, at Michigan, he's got Savion Hyder coming in, the highest rated running back Michigan's ever had in the modern era of recruiting. But I can tell you, he's despite not winning the national championship, he'll take that game win. He was happy to take that. There's something that makes him feel so much happier in Ann Arbor based off of what people have told me, and you can hear and see that here. And I think the hope, if you're Michigan, is that it turns into a lot of what the tenure was for him in, the pre-Michigan beating them when Ryan Day took over type of stuff, right? Like, not even all of it, right? Like, he still had J.K. Dobbins, in 2019. So, like, he still has, he still had, and he had Travion Henderson. The thing is they just were not really a run-first team. They just weren't. And even though they kind of became a little bit more of that last year, I mean, Michigan was more successful on the ground. So, I mean, there's that, but yes, it's Ann Arbor and Columbus couldn't be more different. And you can have your different opinions of the different towns and whatever, but like, he's just in a much better place, and you can see and hear that. It's one of those things. It's not necessarily a shot. I mean, it is, but it isn't. And I guarantee that right now on the Buckeye boards, they're flipping out because it's just what they do about every little tiny thing, every little thing. And I'm going to tie that into the Dave Portnoy stuff, which I think it's interesting that Ross Bjork came out and said, oh, it's not true. It's Fox that didn't let him. Then it's like, well, then why did Fox hired him for what is probably their second biggest game of the entire year, Texas at Ohio State, the other one being Ohio State at Michigan, and said that, but we're not going to have him there for that. And then also said he couldn't bring his independent company, Barstool Sports, there for the pre-game show. That doesn't really track to me. It doesn't matter. I'm sure there's Buckeyes watching this that are going to get all up in arms. None of it matters, but I'm just saying, like, it doesn't really track to me. And it's just funny because it's just like, if they do react to that, which I'm sure they will, like, there's like a lot of this, like, rent free. It's like, bro, like that would be like Michigan saying that about you guys at any time between 2012 and 2019, or 2004 through 2010, or Michigan saying it about Michigan State in a lot of the Mark D'Antonio era. That does not make sense. That is not a dig. So, yeah, fun that these types of things are happening, but off season's almost over. Excited for it to be over because Saturday we have a game and we'll finally know how good Michigan is. I'm going to get into a little bit of that too in this next CBS related segment because there's more to that as well. So we will do that here in just a moment. But before we do, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. I've got so many properties in the Caymans, you have no idea. When you don't have the full picture, you could end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, so if you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever even touching a spreadsheet. The great thing is you can even find out if you're just someone like me that is just kind of living your life. You don't have the portfolios and stuff. You can still figure out, like, hey, I've been paying for this thing that I didn't know I was paying for forever, because it happens to the best of us. Happens to me more than I'd like to admit. You sit and sign up for something thinking, I'm going to use this service. Before you know it, it's years down the road and you haven't. So know that it is good for that. So don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment. But before we do, the NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's the most that I've seen them do. It is incredible. Here's the thing. They pay out very quickly, and it's super fast, easy, secure. They've got all kinds of same-game parlays already built up. You could play blackjack. There's all kinds of things. That's what I have tended to do. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right. It's kind of funny because we really are kind of getting into the preseason doldrums in the sense of, like, I want to see. I don't want to talk about hypotheticals anymore. That's where we're at, but we're still talking about hypotheticals. But I'm ready to move on from the hypotheticals. I'm ready to see and read and react. I can't wait for that. One hypothetical here is that I was surprised to see Tom Fornelli did like his power rankings, not Big Ten power rankings, but his power rankings, and he had Michigan at number 10. Considering that his teammate over there at CBS Sports, J.N.J. Raja, had Michigan not only as being overrated at number 14, said like they are a team that is sure to drop out. That was good to see. I want to echo something that Steve Dace put out there. We reference him a lot because he's a good friend of mine. Much to the chagrin of some people, I don't care. If you think I care, well, why are you platforming him? Shut up. I say that in love as a believer in Jesus, but seriously, just stop. I'm not falling for that. the thing is like you see like my friend Josh Pate, been on this show, has Michigan going 8-4. You see a lot of people like Shea and Jayaraja who look at it and say, well, Michigan wasn't good last year. They're not going to be good this year. Because as I say constantly, Michigan's the only team that's not allowed to get better. And they look on paper and say, no Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, that's going to get worse. It's the same thing as no Aiden Hutchinson, no David Ajabo, it's going to get worse. Oh, they changed offensive coordinators and quarterbacks. Yeah, that's a good thing. Oh, they play at Oklahoma. So, what was Oklahoma last year? Oh, they were 6-7, but they're going to be so good because they're allowed to get better. At least Tom Fornelli is looking at it and say, hey, the offense is going to be better. We know that. You look on paper, Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall is better than Kalel Mullings and Donovan Edwards. So, okay, good stuff there. Oh, no, the audio looks like it's still working. It's just being freezing on the screen. That's never what you want to see. So there's just a lot of those types of weird narratives. But on the other hand, you have Michigan players. We've heard multiple guys say this. I can't even remember all of them. But like Brandon Hillman yesterday is like, y'all will see. Sherwin Moore is like, you know, we'll see. You're going to see. There is a confidence brimming coming out of Ann Arbor in a way that, again, I've said this time and time again. We're just going to keep repeating the same things over and over again until we actually have games to talk about. But there's all of these people are talking about it and being like, you guys are going to see. Are there going to be bumps in the road? Yes, there will be bumps in the road. I want to prepare you for that. For all of this, like, you know, I'm the biggest Bryce Underwood cheerleader here. Way more so, I think, than a lot of my colleagues, because I've just had, I think, more conversations with people who have seen him in that case. But I think that their version of freshman mistakes and what Bryce's version of freshman mistakes are probably going to be different. Okay. He's going to make mistakes. Every quarterback does. Tom Brady at his peak made mistakes. So don't think it's just going to be smooth sailing. Do I think he's going to be full on Trevor Lawrence year one? I don't think that that's necessarily the case, because at least Trevor Lawrence got to kind of slide in week 5 a little bit more in 2018. But again, I think that the offense is going to be just a lot better. I think having a competent offensive coordinator matters. I think having everyone on the same page matters. I think Wink Martindale learned to adjust to the college game, and that matters more than a lot of what other people are putting stock in. Because when a lot of these analysts do, they, number one, they don't look at the whole returning player thing, right? Like those who, like, you know, one thing I can say bad about Tom Fornelli's power rankings, he has Ohio State at number 1. Well, it's one of the most inexperienced teams in college football. Now, Michigan beat Ohio State with also one of the most inexperienced teams in college football, right? Like that can happen. But there's just a lot where I feel like the experience matters, culture matters, everyone put on the same page matters. You know, returning coordinators that were good matters. Not returning coordinators that weren't good also matters. All of those things, they all play into my belief of why I think Michigan is going to be better. I'm not just throwing darts here. These are all things that they might not be quantifiable in the exact same way that, like, okay, they lost this guy, but they got Devin Sanchez. Or they lost this guy, but they, you know, like they still have Carnell Tate type of thing, right? Like, it's a different scenario that I'm kind of different lens that I'm looking through. And it's the same lens that made Michigan successful from 2021 to 2023. Now, could I be wrong? And could that be a bygone era that is just not going to be replicated? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit in here and say like this is tried and true. But I do think that there is a lot that you can look at and say, these are things that people aren't taking into account. And whether it's all of what I just mentioned or the schedule, because remember, Oklahoma is going to be better. Nebraska is going to be better. USC is going to be better. Washington's going to be better. Michigan State's going to be better. Michigan, worse for reasons, right? Like, you'd think like, man, they did not have an offense last year. Hey, now they at least have a modicum of an offense. Therefore, they should be better. If the defense is smarter than it was in the first half of the season and plays like it did in the back end, It plays like it did in the bowl game, but no one's looking at it that way. When Michigan loses a bowl game, yep, that's who they are. When they win a bowl game, that's a fluke weird thing. It's bizarre, but we're just getting from all of these players. Y'all will see. That to me is, I mean, it's a lot of confidence. It's a lot of confidence from people that I more so trust than some of the people that have said things over the years. Maybe we'll see, and it looks like they've never played football before, and you're like, what were you doing this entire time? I doubt that, though. They go out there and play Sarcastaball. I don't know. But I feel like their confidence it's rubbed off on me, not in the typical fall camp, Josh Ross is bigger and faster and better than Devin Bush sort of way. But in a way that's like, okay, I'm going to read between the lines here. And if this is accurate, if what you are telling me is accurate, this is going to be good. And on top of my own analysis. So there you go. All right. Who are some of those players that are going to be household names by the end of the year? Let's get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, you get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. That's what you got to do. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow with over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks, like priority shipping and dedicated support, make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off of your first order. That's SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, we're doing this one off the cuff. This was an idea I came up with about 5 minutes before we sat down, decided not to write anything down. I like doing that better because even though sometimes I miss guys and then I get annoyed emails. How could you forget about Blake Corum? I don't know. ADHD? Neurodivergence? Something. I want to start with Jasper Parker, because he's been talked about all week as being a potential RB3. It doesn't seem like they have like a set depth chart that they're at least revealing in terms of the running backs. 1A, 1B is Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall. Could be Jasper, could be Micah Kapana, could be Bryson Kuzdal. I think it's just we're going to find out in game. But we've heard through unofficial sources, official sources, behind the scenes, press conferences, all of that, Jasper Parker's come on really strong. Tony Alford talked about him today. If you've been paying attention to this show for any period of time in the last 10 months, then you've heard me mention that name a lot. And like what Tony Alford was saying was, yeah, you can't really see it on film as much as when you see it in person. You see him in person, you're like, whoa. Yeah. I'm telling you, they love this kid, and he's showing it early in camp. Expect him to have a Chris Evans type of year, I think. Will he go off for 200 yards in the season opener? I doubt that, but I wouldn't have taken that bet with Chris Evans against Hawaii in 2016 either. Some of the names that I'm going to mention may or may not be starters, like Trey Pierce, who's been mentioned all week. Right. Again, just to recap, I had asked Sharon Moore, like, who's impressed you the most and who's been the biggest surprise in camp, and he said Trey Pierce. I don't think that's necessarily that surprising because, I mean, he did very well in the bowl game, but maybe he wasn't like the best pass rushing guy. He didn't necessarily have like the big play that you're like, okay, this guy's come on, but it sounds like he's done that. And considering we talk a lot more about Trey Williams and Damon Payne, and let's not forget about Ikawana and Anoeta, like I feel bad even leaving those two down in the bottom because, again, we've talked about both of those guys, in particular lately this year, this offseason, we've talked about Ikawana because Wink Martindale seems to want to bring him up every chance he gets. I mean, that's just a deep rotation. But Trey Pierce is a guy that I'd have my eye out on at this point. This one is more for the casuals than the everydayers. Brandon Hillman, who's going to be a starter at safety. I thought it was really funny that Buckeyes were calling him Brandon Midman yesterday because he had a really great line about like how you flip that switch going into New Mexico. It's like, well, they have the same colors as effing Ohio State. And of course, that's another one of the things that they're angry about. They're just angry about everything. They won a national championship. You think like no one could bother Michigan fans last year. They were like, trophy too loud. Like they're not that for whatever reason. Okay. But for the casuals, Brandon Hillman is a guy, but I wanted the whole thing kind of started up in my mind because Mason Curtis was the name I wanted to mention. I feel like, again, this might be more for the casuals. I think the diehards probably feel like, yeah, we're going to see a lot of Mason Curtis. I don't know if he's going to be the starter, but you're going to see a lot of him, and he's going to move around, I think, quite a bit. TJ Metcalf, again, for the casuals more so. He isn't getting talked about as much in camp as he probably should be. I think they just want to keep him a secret until he bursts out on the scene. Because I've just heard, I mean, you saw it in the spring game. I've heard from talking to people, like, he's just incredible. He's got a moxie of like, hey, I'm a starter. So like, well, before, it was like beginning of camp, like, oh, I'm a starter. I think he's going to be incredible. The problem with a lot of what I just said is I just mentioned one offensive player and a bunch of defensive players. I have just so much more confidence on the defensive side of the ball than I do offense. And that's terrifying to some degree. Like, yeah, when Hogan Hansen comes back, I think when he's healthy, that might be a guy that we're talking about in the same vein. I think he's going to be one of the biggest benefactors of it. Joe Taylor yesterday mentioned Anthony Simpson of his own volition in the same breath as Donovan McCulley that's the first time that's happened. Okay, maybe we're working with something here. He's not a starter though, right? Because we know that Channing Goodwin and Samaj Morgan are the starters. So that's by the way, mea culpa to those who chided me for having Anthony Simpson as a starter back in an early offseason depth chart. Y'all were right and I was wrong. I like to admit when I'm wrong. But like outside of Jasper Parker and maybe Hogan Hansen and I guess like unknown wide receiver, there's just not a lot there, which is why I'm just so much we have to see it. I close my eyes if you're listening right now because I can't see it yet. And I'm excited for Saturday because then we're going to get to see it. Hard to believe that we're just days away from not only the season opener. I drove up to Flint earlier today, go to the Christian bookstore, and go to Costco. And, Flint's only 15 minutes away. I drove by Bishop Airport, where I'm flying out of to go to Oklahoma. And I'm just sitting there thinking, man, 12 in not even that was it 9 days I will be taking this very route. 9 days from right now I will be on a plane to Chicago I've made a whole series of bad decisions as far as my flying just because I was like, oh, I can take 2 flights out of Flint, just so I can have an ease of flying out of Flint rather than Detroit Metro. Yeah, I kind of regret that now that I'm looking at everything, but we're there. We're almost there. Today was the last press conference before an actual game. And then we get into the game. So, yeah, there we go. I don't have a heck of a lot more to say to you at this point. Tomorrow, we're recording with Jack Tuttle tomorrow. I'm unsure if I'm thinking that's going to air on Friday because I think we're going to make that like the game preview. And then, so that would mean that tomorrow we will do a mailbag. That is the plan. Unless I change it. So keep your eye out on Twitter to see if I put out a call for questions. Maybe it will be the reverse. Maybe it will be mailbag on Friday. That's probably more likely. The idea of recording 2 shows in a day sounds like a lot of work. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Peace.